welcome back to the studio. I'm sorry this video has taken so long for me to make. I had the best of intentions of keeping up with YouTube, but and I filmed a lot. Ended up getting sick in September for a few weeks, and this sort of derailed my plans. So this video is going to be mostly projects that I filmed from the end of August, September, October, and a tiny bit of November as well. And hopefully the next video won't take me like 5 months to make. I've honestly really enjoyed this process. I've really liked filming, I've really liked editing and kind of putting it all together, and I just think it's a really nice format for me to share my work, because I have been trying to share my work more on other social medias. Sometimes I find it rewarding, but a lot of the time it's just very time consuming, and I also think it's maybe not the best format to use to highlight my work, because so much of what I do is time consuming and repetitive and quite detailed and minute. Sometimes I just think it doesn't translate as well to the pace at which we tend to consume those kinds of social medias. Anyway, I think YouTube is a better fit, and hopefully you do too. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. It made the most sense for me to just structure this video around a few of the projects that I was actually able to complete during those months. So I thought the first project that I'd share with you should be woven. Weaving is really what made me fall in love with textiles, and even though I don't weave as much as I'd like to because I've made time for other mediums, every time that I sit at my loom, I feel so grateful to have this practice. So here I'm weaving a few narrow panels that I've had the idea for such a long time. But basically I structured this warp as a sort of continuation of a different weaving that I made in 2022 during a bit of a creative rut. I was talking to my mom on the phone about how to get myself unstuck, and she suggested that I find a way to come back to the basics of weaving, because I was sort of trying to overcomplicate things for myself, and I first thought of plain weave, of course, and then color variation as one of the simplest ways that I could bring visual interest to a piece, which then brought me to stripes. Stripes, even in plain weave, can be interesting and beautiful and somehow feel both extremely modern and ancient. So I challenged myself to use stripes as my guideline while working with the materials that I had on hand. Everything was secondhand and in a mostly neutral color palette, so the color couldn't take away or distract from the exploration of structure. Anyway, this piece now hangs in my studio, and I really like the process of weaving these narrow panels and then bringing them together to form a whole new piece, and that's what led me to making this narrow warp now. I'm weaving a few panels that will then be stitched together to form a larger piece. I spent a while hem stitching all the edges because I thought I'd display it with the edges exposed, but that didn't end up happening. So it's a little bit of a waste of time, but it's still satisfying to hem stitch, and I really like the finish. Though I always need to reference this little drawing that I made to remember how to start. Anyway, these panels were very meditative to weave since I'd planned out the structure of them. It's basically a simple repetition of stripes, alternating thinner cream cotton in plain weave with thicker chenille cotton to create a more raised texture. Some stripes thicker than others for different panels. This was such a good project to work on while I was sick and when I was recovering from being sick, since I didn't really have to think or plan very much once it was all set up.
Signal frame. Make me into a golden token. Skip my stones on a creek. Every word we have quietly spoken, hanging in the air like strings. I found you just like an open window inside a new shade of green. I could live under this open window. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Baby, your color burns through me. Wide awake in a spell, a note left in the margins of a dream.
So that's the first two pieces in this series done. I ended up hand stitching the white striped panels together to form a bigger piece of cloth and hanging it from 2 brass bars. I really like how it came out. I like that you can see the slight variations and imperfections from hand weaving across the piece. There's a few missed threads here and there, and I just think it adds to its charm. I also stitched the second piece together. I wove it on sort of a whim, and I think it turned out pretty well. My idea was to weave narrow pieces and stitch them together vertically, so the hem stitch could become a sort of selvage, the edge of the fabric. I wove these ones with the same dark brown cotton of the warp and some secondhand linen, and the beads that I added in were my aunt's. It's a bit of a weird piece, but I like it. It kind of reminds me of a caterpillar or something. I like that I was able to create a new pattern by starting with a simple structure, by weaving a dark brown stripe and lighter brown stripe in a section, and then repeating that to then stitch them together and alternating the direction to create a whole new pattern, a checkerboard out of stripes. And I think that this type of pattern repetition, creating something more complex from simple parts, is something that I want to keep exploring in my weaving. And finally, the last weaving in this series, I wove while really struggling to recover from being sick. Since I was in a bit of a funk, I didn't end up filming much, so I've added a few process photos so you can see. I think of this one as a patchwork weaving, using the same sort of concept as the previous ones. I really like the contrast between this wool and the linen and cotton stripes. The softness of the wool really balances so well with the ruggedness and luster of the linen and mercerized cotton. I'm very happy to say that this piece is now with a gallery for an exhibition that's going until the end of February. which is partly why I don't have that many videos of it finished. I sort of had to rush to get it shipped there in time. This next project is a bit of mending work, fixing my partner's jeans. I've already done a few mends on these, but the fabric by the front pockets is starting to wear thin. It isn't super damaged yet, but I'd rather fix it sooner than later to avoid a larger repair. I'm going to reinforce the fabric by adding a patch of similar weight denim to the back and stitch it in place using sashiko thread and stitching. I've just added a basting stitch to hold the patch in place, but you can also just leave the pins. I just tend to poke myself a lot when I leave the pins in. Yeah. I don't know why I do this to myself. This is such an avoidable problem. Oh, that's not bad. No, maybe it is bad. I don't think I've shown or spoken about visible mending yet on this channel, but it's a big part of my studio work as well. I think I started mending around 2020, but I suppose mending really falls in line with my personal philosophy about clothing. I'm aware of the considerable strain the fashion industry puts on people and the planet and have been trying to minimize my own impact for a few years now. I wear what I already own and only buy when I really need something, and when I do, I buy secondhand if possible, or from brands that I believe aim to protect their workers and produce their clothing ethically and with the least environmental impact possible. But clothes do eventually wear down over time, and that's where mending comes in. I follow quite a few people who do visible mending work, and I've been blown away by the amount of detail and care that goes into the mends. They're like little works of art. I've also found over time that the clothing that I've mended has become even more special and precious to me. In my opinion, the extra care and time put into it just adds to the garment's history and its value. But back to these jeans. They are a few years old and have quite a few repairs on them already. So to keep them cohesive, I decided to stick to a simpler color palette of blue and white. I also often forget that you can switch colors when stitching like this. I often do sashiko mends with just one color, which I do genuinely really like, but Here I decided to alternate white and blue to differentiate this mend from some of the others already on the jeans. And yes, I'm back to stripes again. One of the first mends that I did, this little guy, and then the button fell off, and so I had this spare, and it had actually pulled the fabric through, so I reinforced it there. And then this is one of my first machine crotch repairs. It actually needs a little bit more stitching there. Not the best job, but it's holding up. This is over a year old now. This little Fushiko patch with little crosses. This is probably, I can check, but I think this is at least a year old, possibly a year and a half old. I think it's wearing really nicely. And then I've just done these two in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And then I think on the back I just need to reinforce a little bit here under the pocket, so I'll probably unpick the pocket and then add a patch there. I might add a little patch on the inside of the pocket, but maybe not. I'll see how I feel. And then same over here. And finally, for this last project, a small quilt inspired by the wildflowers on the west coast. On a weekend at the end of August, I went up the coast to see the wildflowers in bloom at the West Coast National Park. It was the prettiest day, slightly overcast but still warm enough and perfect for photos. There were so many different flowers out, and I honestly just couldn't stop smiling. I came back to the studio that Monday and immediately started sewing a patchwork inspired by the colors, scale, and pattern of the flower fields. I sadly didn't film any of the sewing process. I think I was honestly too wrapped up in a state of flow to remember to stop and set up to film. So I've added a few of the photos I have from the patchwork process. I didn't know what it was going to be in the beginning until it sort of felt like it was the right size to stop. I decided it would be a small quilt. I finished the quilt top with almost all of my last pieces of yellow and bright green and used a large piece of blue cotton for the back. As I've said before, I always try and work with secondhand or upcycled material where possible, so most of these are from a local clothing brand, and the rougher purple hemp scraps are from my partner's office. They were going to throw it away. The other bits of purple are some of the leftovers I had from a pillowcase that I cut to sew to the right size. The bright green plaid was given to me by someone studying fashion design here, and I also included a small piece of my own hand-woven fabric for good luck, the natural linen and mustard yellow stripes. I didn't want to distract too much from the patchwork, so I decided to hand quilt it with very thin quilting thread and only do simple vertical lines. I'm still relatively new to quilting, but I think this is one of the quilts I'm the most proud of. I feel like I'm really starting to find my balance with freeform patchwork with this one.